who are new, just quickly.
Yeah.
Sorry, the email. I'm still looking at the names of the thing.
We have 4 members, if you get a second.
Sorry. Anyway, so the idea is to essentially look at any ordinances that would be appropriate to the town, which is essentially the government. Some of our more like policies, they're not law, that's you get behind the piece of government. The things that we think about well-being should be enforced. And there's 3 of these things that we have on the agenda today. We did have 3 lawyers in the last meeting, which was a good thing. We now have the town council turning at it. So,
Good enough.
but there were long discussions last time, maybe a little short each one, but obviously we'll go out and meet something. Captain Alma is here. He's last year, he's also, obviously, from the police department point of view. And it's going to be an enormous help tonight. It was the first to rely on some of his work. It's been going since last year. Okay, the 3 things today. The first is e-bikes. The second is the duty on town property. The third is instant response. The first 2 are holdovers from last year, essentially. We started to discuss e-bikes at the last meeting last year. So doing things we're going to the phones, there's some issues. Asked us to rate this, to see what other municipalities are doing, but more importantly, to see what the state is doing as legislation, because what they came out with at the time was confusing. Is the word?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
So we said wait. The second thing, duty on town property is it's from an ordinance perspective, it's obviously nothing to do with free speech. Town doesn't allow any kind of political statements or anything. We only fly 3 flags, so we try and keep as neutral as possible. It's just but it's more of a vandalism issue. We have some PCs put outside the town hall, the advertised festival. Citizens say it's appropriate, they complain about it. So the outreach to the agenda, let's take and discuss it. But again, it's more a vandalism issue. It's certainly not a free speech issue. And the last one is instant response cost recovery, which Steve will talk about, Steve Bagowski. It's to do with the instant cost from accidents that happen in town. Basically, program that we swear, and the question is appropriate. It's appropriate for our town. If it is fine, we can talk about it. So, I'll try and keep the meeting to an hour, because having sat through these things, I understand that talking about a lot of these things, you want to take the focus, and I don't want to go on and on and on. So. All right, any questions? Okay, start with,
I think this was posted on our Facebook page about e-bikes. The law was recently changed, so it took us a little bit to kind of figure everything out. We were in a little bit of a gray area prior to October, where an e-bike essentially was as powerful as a motorcycle. However, we couldn't enforce it as a motorcycle. So the new law did a couple things. Clarified that once a vehicle exceeds the definition of electric bicycle, it's now a motor-driven cycle or a motorcycle. So if you go off of that chart, anything at 75 to 3,700 watts or 50 cc's and then upwards of there, motor-driven cycle or motorcycle. basically all the laws that apply to those two things now apply to these vehicles, those types of vehicles. The statute gives clear authority to enforce standard traffic laws on e-bike riders, the same as we do for bicycles. So basically anything under that, on the left side of your graph, basically they have to follow the rules of the road now as far as bicycles are concerned.
Okay, so that's
Right of ways and things like that, essentially. Yep. And then, they also, require helmets, are now required for all e-bike riders, regardless of age. It's another thing that we could enforce. And then the last piece is the law closes loopholes that were reclassifying these powerful e-bikes as motor vehicles, allowing, basically, now we're allowed, you have to have a motorcycle endorsement if you have this 3,500 watt plus e-bike. It has to be registered, it has to basically be treated as a motorcycle. 10-year-old not allowed to drive a motorcycle on the street, where in the past, that was basically the case. So it allowed us basically, to now enforce it as either a bicycle or a motorcycle. As far as the town trail is concerned, motorcycles aren't allowed on the town trail, so the only thing to take up or issue to talk about would be, an e-bike on the trail. And again, I think we talked about it on the last committee, what that looks like, because we have handicapped individuals that may use some type of assistive device on a bicycle. We can outlaw all of those things for the best interest of, again, just a talking point to talk about. A lot of the laws as far as enforcement and what we can do, we're shored up. The other piece of it is actually stopping these individuals. So a lot of times they're seeing the police and they're just running. We're not chasing or pursuing anybody that's on a motorcycle. It's just too dangerous.
Yeah, understood. What about the congregation of the guys on the bikes?
You know, like the e-bike street takeovers.
Yep, so I mean, as long as they're violating traffic law, whether it be a bicycle traffic law or e-bike, or, I'm sorry, there's two words here. A motorcycle or motor-driven cycle law, then we can take enforcement action. What we're realistically seeing with juvenile law is you hand out a juvenile summons, juvenile court's not going to be doing anything with this. They'll push it back down to our own juvenile review board here in town, depending on how the parents work with the juvenile, if they're receptive or not, we get the
If they stop.
if they stop. Correct. Which a lot of times, if they're stopping, it's usually the one kid that doesn't want to run from the police and he's cooperative and helpful at times in your investigation. But we've had some successes talking with parents and basically saying, you know, you're going to get a summons to court or you can handle it as a parent. Parents generally do sometimes handle it.
What's your perception on, with this, you know, obviously is a statistic, about, you know, essentially applying law enforcement to these guys? What's your perception on that? Number one, personally, and number two, you know, I think we're going to chat to some other police departments to see what their experience has been.
Yeah, and I think everyone was really, now that the weather's a little bit colder, it's kind of quiet.
Well, yeah, it's not.
Everyone was really waiting on this law to be passed so that we actually got to do something or have some type of enforcement action, and now we have that. As far as enforcement here in town, we're working on installing 2 hand-tilt zoom cameras, one at the top of Center Street, one at the bottom of Center Street. Those will have live feeds into all the cruisers, into dispatch, into all the police. So kind of a better way to just monitor the area without maybe always having an officer physically in that area. Because we just don't have the resources to have someone sit down there all day. But if we can see on the camera that there's a congregation of kids starting or whatever it is, an officer can go down there and see it and try to address it.
And my last question from last year. I just want to think what was that. There was talk about, and this was before this came up, there's talk about saying, you know, it's always the parents into, you know, kids, because they were would we have things like fines for bikes?
Anyone under a certain age is just going to get juvenile summons. So it's more of an inconvenience to have to report with their child, and then probably 1 or 2 court appearances, and then likely be referred to juvenile review board, and that's more time off.
What happens to the bike?
So depending on what the offense is, the
Okay, sorry, questions, anyone?
Just one statement, it's almost, understood, but I would assume scooters fall into the first category, because the scooters are also.
Like a regular pedal scooter? or
No,
electric
the motor.
motor. I mean, my guess would be, but.
I would guess class 1 e-bike.
Right, but we'd have to look into it. I don't know if there's a juiced up scooter that has extra
Okay.
watts, and some of these things you'd be surprised. how
I
fast
just
they
see,
go.
even at school, kids are driving those more and more and more, and I'm worried sometimes just by the way they are with the traffic, especially on Pleasant Street, so I'm curious if maybe you can just look into that, just to be I assumed it was under that class 1, but if you're saying there's a gray area.
If you ever, do they park around the school?
Oh, yeah,
So if you have a line of them, and you want, an officer to stop down and kind of look at the line, check out the watts on them, and make sure they are in that lowest class and not a different class or
Okay.
something.
and to your point, they're not now, with the
Yeah.
year of the snow, but certainly in the fall, they were doing it,
A little bit of a help that on the day wear a helmet.
right?
We did have a fatality up on, near Waterbury Road, up there, we drew down that guy ran over. So it was more of a low pad car. They are getting hurt.
I remember that was October.
Yeah.
Okay, if you guys know,
What do the adjoining towns, allow or not allow?
So this is statewide, so this would be,
But does Cheshire have an ordinance against,
Not
e-bikes
that
on
I
rails
know
or
of.
trails or anything?
I believe that, Lou has looked into it, and I don't think anybody.
No abutting towns or no towns along rails or trails have any ordinances?
No, I think it was developed, I don't know about the specific trails, but I think all the municipalities were looking at the state, and the state was kind of crafting something for about a year or two, so it was, for lack of a better word, Wild West for a short period of time. There's been some direction from the state, with the state statutes, that I think most municipalities are kind of relying on, so not rights, kind of
I mean,
statutes.
my question is, do we want e-bikes on rails and trails? To me, we gotta answer that question first, or the town does.
Doesn't it say transportation class 1?
class 2 is
Trails
Trails are
Class
allowed.
2 is something.
If it's title assisted.
I'm looking at class number
It's not
2,
pedal
right
assisted.
now.
So it depends on how it's pedals on it. Has pedals on it, it is allowed.
So is class 3.
No, it's only the pedal assisted that trails is allowed to be.
Class 3 would be no limit access highway structure.
So the only e-bike that's allowed on the trails, the pedal assisted bike, that's under 20 miles an hour. Correct. It's,
Does this mean trails and as in like rails to trails or like trails as in?
That's one of those types of things just to get around it, maybe, because it's, you know, it's not one super powered, but you're not a trail, as in you wouldn't be able to get around without it, so I think that's already allowed and certainly prohibited, what we make that.
I mean, I wasn't here for the last ordinance committee, but that's probably why we're looking for clarification, right? Ask what's allowed and what's not allowed, because you guys did it now.
Yeah.
So now, the only thing that's allowed on trails is pedal assisted class 1. Okay.
Oh, does your friend have, does he have just electric motor or does he have pedals?
No, it's an electric motor, so yeah, they're actually aren't pedals, yeah.
So he's been doing.
That's true, I guess he
General
wouldn't, yeah,
statutes.
I think, yeah, I don't think it has pedals, yeah, that's true.
I think realistically, it's almost impossible to enforce.
I know, that's the other issue, yeah, we have it on the books. You know, if we find a handicapped individual, we find a handicapped, and he has a less than 20 miles an hour, to go 5 miles an hour, is it really appropriate for an officer to take action?
It's reputational damage.
They do have discretion.
And class 1 and 2 look almost the exact same, because we've had cases in our private practice where there's bikes involved, and it's impossible to tell without actually pulling the battery out of the bike to see what the bike is. So 1, 2, and 3 can look the exact same, so it's not like an officer could be on the trail and, you know, peg it and say, okay, that's.
They do their best to try to investigate model bumpers and stuff like that, but yeah.
trails, would that be encouraging people to drive on public streets with it?
They'd be considered a bicycle at that point, so they'd have to, right, a certain direction of traffic, they'd have to yield right away in certain areas, so it'd be, basically the rules of the road on a bicycle would apply to it.
Now, the type of helmet between class 1 and 2 motorcycle, is it a different helmet or is it all the same helmet? So,
I'd have to further into the statute, I don't know if you know.
well, motorcycle, you would need a motorcycle helmet, you can't do it with a pedal bike helmet, but I'm assuming 1 and 2 you can do it with a pedal bike helmet.
Yes, I would imagine so. But for the enforcement of the law, the two on the right are considered basically treated as organizations.
Okay, so then it's all the,
As far as the motorcycle endorsement license, all insurance, usually.
registration.
What questions, so we got one open question, which is, this is about mopeds or scooters. You won't be able to look at that until.
You'd be more than happy to put out there.
Well, I mean, just
A
in
lineup.
general, I mean, it's all around town too,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, if we could have a sense of what, if that is one of these, whether it is already current, that's fine.
I don't think this covers,
There we go.
right, this doesn't cover the.
That's why I figured it might be under this first category, you know, which is the, e-bikes 20 miles or less.
It's not considered a meter.
I know, that's why I didn't know, that's why,
Right. Would it go with the watts?
I thought I was redacted back to watts and then speed on
Okay.
that.
but still, so that would default all the way to that first category, I would assume you're the lowest.
Yeah, can we look at the details of the statute for scooters?
Specifically for a scooter?
No, for the, what do you call it?
Power scooters.
Yeah, power
Yeah.
scooters.
I'm also curious about the helmet requirement for them as well. Because again, if they're powered, I'm not talking foot pedal, but anything that's powered,
Are you finding them not wearing helmets too?
yeah.
So I'm getting more. Okay, so there's two open items, power scooters and helmets. Anything else? Okay, I'll keep it on the agenda then for the next meeting. That's okay, and we'll get an answer back. And then determine final ruling on that. Is that okay? Great, and, okay, graffiti on town. Right, by the way, thanks. And, oh, by the way, you're still on.
Keep them. Don't talk. I'm not a voting member, I'm just
Oh, no.
exhibition on.
Yeah, you're very important.
So I just did a little bit of research, the best that I can. We weren't enforcing chalking on public property, generally considered being free speech. Dug into a little bit more of the statute that might apply. And that would be the vandalism statute. Connecticut General Statutes has a damage requirement. You could also tamper, but the act of tampering would have to place the property in danger of being damaged. I also consulted with our state's attorney at GA 15, in agreement with the police department's assessment that chalking on a public sidewalk is not qualified as vandalism.
Yeah, it's public, that's public, we're just concerned with town.
I found a couple different case laws for you to review there. Just basically chalking and defacing statutes, they work their way through the court. None of those are binding to our district court, but when you're looking for guidance, you can look at other different courts and see what they do.
I think there's two areas, right? There's whether they're allowed to do it or not on town property, and then there's the cost of cleanup, right?
Right.
I think we're looking to make sure that the town is whole from a cost perspective. I think that would be one part of what I would expect in ordinance, if we're gonna go down that path. But if it's, legally, it's allowed as First Amendment to bond public property, town property, then there's nothing we can do about that, right? But it's legal to do that. But it's the cost of sending the fire department out there, you know, hosing the stuff down and doing that maybe we would, you know, have an opportunity there. I don't know, just throw it out there.
I think on the first one though, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, the ordinances we have with the flag assumes that in town property, right, it's only town property, we only allow flag, there's 3 flags, that's the only speech we allow. You know, American flag, state flag, town flag, only POWs attached to the American flag. So we've already said we don't allow speech, is that anything else?
Yeah, I can look at the ordinance, I don't know off the top of my head, I know that there's obviously one dedicated to flags, I don't know if it expands on that or if it just needs to be that.
Well, the reason I say that is I know the previous town manager actually applied it to stuff that was being hung on the town board. Do you remember this? And
Yeah, it was on
allowed-
the committee.
Oh, you were,
Too.
yeah.
it came down to flags alone.
Well,
Didn't get to any sort of.
with the exception of there was something about staking something in the ground. Like,
Right,
it
yeah.
could be, a flag could be put in the ground,
Not permanently fixed.
correct? And someone had to hold it, if I recall
Yeah,
correctly.
So but does that include any speech apart from this flags?
I think it was just one, it was just flags.
Yeah.
That ordinance wasn't, it's,
I can double check it, but I don't think it went beyond flags.
It said mark definitely 2,000 banners under that stuff, but I don't know if it's.
Well, that could also be because they were being held, and they were not permanently fixed in the ground. That makes
Yeah.
sense.
Okay, okay.
So, going back to the apple harvest, which is kind of what sparked this. Fire department came out, police came out, and they attempted to wash it away. I actually watched the video yesterday, and there were a few of them that, after the fire department hosed them down and scrubbed them with a brush, they were still there. That defined as damage. Like, I don't think it's, and I'm speculating here, but like, chalk for the most part washes away. If something's hosed down by the fire department, it doesn't wash away. It's mixed with something, and then that constitutes damage.
Right, because
It's
it's not
not
chalk.
Yeah,
Right, that
because if it
doesn't-
leaves a
that's not
stain,
chalk.
Right.
then if the chalk is mixed with something like paint or something, right?
Because now
It's not chalk.
if you're walking down the sidewalk and there's a bunch of, pictures that were drawn with whatever the substance was, and it's, mostly sprayed away, but you're looking down and you're walking and you see all the stuff. And
I mean,
now it's
the
almost like graffiti, but
Yeah,
it's
the-
very light, but.
video's still on the internet, it was there yesterday, guys, go look it up.
Yeah.
And it was stained, like they put, fire department power washed it down, scrubbed it, and it was still there right afterwards. Yeah. So, I don't think any of us are talking about like a kid drawing on the sidewalk here, just to be clear on
But I
that.
guess we'd have to clarify, that, right, because this says chalk, I don't know.
Chalky that leaves stains, residue,
That's
like,
extension.
yeah.
Exactly, be a little bit clearer.
Yeah, because when we brought this up in town, or when it was brought up in town council not the last meeting, that was where it told us this goes, but the one before that, I think 2 members of the public brought it up, and like, we're not talking about like regular chalk here, we're talking about chalk that leaves stains or markings or something, I think.
Is that covered by the police stuff under vandalism?
So you have the statute there.
Right. So,
So is it
The
damages?
keyword being there.
it's damage.
If it were on,
I say maybe that's a you question.
Yeah, I mean, permanently altering the appearance of something is damage, in my opinion.
I guess you run into that, is it permanent, is it temporary? And what's your definition of permanent, what's your definition of temporary? If I walk out there right now, do you see it? Is it there? Front door.
That's a good question.
No, it's not, it went away.
Finally went away.
So when, now that we're time.
Yeah. And there are some factors there, right? Is it paint up chalk and some factors, or is it a liquid that we run in the floor? So that's.
But we do have, if it's permanent, we do have the ability of that type of vandalism to, especially at pubs, experience, but if we know who did it, we send them a bill. Is that what you're saying, Steve? You guys think?
Well, I had a question, if it was on private property, would it be different? So if somebody came and chalked my driveway, would that be considered vandalism?
Driveway, but if you warn not to return, and if you return, you can arrest them for trespass. Depending on the message there too, because we're talking about a message directed at you, or just a message words said out loud in public, those are two very different things.
Well, I'm not concerned about that, I'm concerned about the chalk itself. Would it be warranted to, maybe instead of having a fine, to offer the person to come and clean it? Before we send them a bill? Or is it the time frame of, like the apple harvest is a different situation, but if it were like on the walking path, we found out that same day, gave the person a chance to come and clean it, it's a, gave, you know, just doing something.
Then you get into enforcement, don't you?
Which is at the discretion of an officer. Usually, but you gotta be careful with selective enforcement, so just because you don't like the message that's written on there doesn't mean, okay, we're gonna bill you for that, but this is an okay message, we're not gonna bill you for that, that's trouble.
But we treat everybody, every situation the same, and it should
You
be.
try to.
Because my mind was a liability, you know, God forbid they're on their hands and knees cleaning it and hurt themselves or something like that, so. I think to have them clean it, may cost more headaches than it's worth.
Why we have a lawyer.
God, sometimes.
Take ourselves.
We had a graffiti problem on rails and trails, right, with the paint, right, on the overpass, remember? You guys had to go, look at it. So it's not just in front of town hall, you know, with some chalk,
No,
it's
it's
prevalent across the town.
that would be,
Especially along rails and trails, right?
Yeah,
People
right.
like to express themselves in high visibility areas, and it costs money to fix it and remediate it.
but that would be handled on the permanent damage, right?
And to me, I think that,
Spray paint,
No. So we got that covered already. Yeah, that's essential. Question, possibly.
How often do we actually
we don't run away.
Yeah, this one live streamed on Facebook.
I think most of the folks that are doing it,
And how often do we see it happen? What a number of instances in a year?
Last year? Didn't when I knew it was once.
probably 5 to 6 other times, at least in the downtown area that I would go, and then probably some more on trails that aren't necessarily brought to our attention, just run over and figure it out.
just look at Facebook, you'll see how often.
I don't really know. And so what's the cost associated with like 5 times?
Using down the fire truck. I did ask Alex. He's not here today. But it's hosing down the fire truck. I mean, it's water really because they're on duty anyway, so for the gas.
Yeah, but it's gas and
There's some level of deterrence, though, you know, anything with enforcement of receiving payment too, because if someone's, you know,
That's true.
using that type of thing, and they all of a sudden be like, yeah, no problem, pay $100, and here you go. You know, I think it's a good investment.
or would it be like a ticket?
So any town laws violation becomes infraction, right? When it's civil citation,
Yeah.
2 years is fine. Like for all town ordinances, I think it depends.
I don't think I'm in a condition.
No,
Right.
town. We'd have to pay.
Yeah, I mean, it's civil recourse, so it's not, there's no aspect associated with it. And if they didn't pay it, we can impose penalties, but I think probably take some people just ignore it forever. And go back to that specific municipalities.
Yeah, I don't think it's something we couldn't enforce in the town.
chalk and people, chalk washes away in rain, and it doesn't, I can see the difference there. I mean, you want work to, it's not just spraying it with water, it's not gonna work. If it's chalk, it's just, writing on a trail or something, and it washes away the next winter. I don't know if that's applicable.
No, yeah, right.
I don't know if that chalk is the right terminology.
Yeah,
I think it
yeah.
does. I don't know if that's the right word.
I definitely agree with that, it's probably not the right word we're talking about, but I'll.
Because then you get the vandalism, that's a different story.
And then we've got
That's, I mean, that's permanent, that's a damage.
I think we, anytime that we have to send town staff or a firefighter or police or whatever, we should look to recoup that cost.
That's the next level.
If it's chalk on it and it goes away in the rain, there's no issue, there's nothing to worry about. If it's permanent chalk, like we saw, that requires, manpower and cost to remove, or removing paint on the rails and trails, to me, that would require, town staff to go and remediate the permanent paint. To me, I think we should be looking to recoup that cost.
Yeah, to Steve's point, I mean, if they're doing that stuff instead of other day jobs, maybe paying overtime, they're like, hey, I couldn't get to this because I had to go clean this stuff up.
So the paint stuff you mentioned, and the chalk. So,
Permanent chalk, there you go, permanent chalk.
permanent chalk.
Right.
But
The last two chalk.
We sent town staff out?
On the rails and trails?
Yeah.
I believe so. You have to check with Alex on that, but.
And it's covered by vandalism, because obviously, some citation.
Paint, yes.
Is paint. But that doesn't mean that we recoup any money that we spent when we done.
Could you a better word for chalking? Is kind of what we're talking about here is not 100% chalk, but it's definitely not 100% paint. Anybody got a word?
No idea what they use.
And again, I think that's where the word defacing comes into play, and there are some defacing town ordinances where, town property may not allow to be defaced. Doesn't matter what the message is, doesn't matter what it says, I refer to the town attorney as far as that, whether that's a good idea.
What do you think, Lee?
I think the word defacing interpretation obviously could incorporate criminal statute if it's paint. It's still defacing if it goes, if it's chalk, permanent chalk, what level of chalk. I mean, I'm not gonna ever test substances, but.
I think we're talking.
I think
But then there's a criminal statute that goes on.
any defacing that requires town costs to remediate. That's what we're looking for.
I think it's a good way of wording it.
You're not gonna put chalking on the trails if it's gonna rain tomorrow. Go for it.
Yeah, right.
What I read about defacing, to me, it seems more of a change in visual appearance as a general definition.
Yeah, I don't know if it specifies if it's temporary or permanent.
I think the idea behind defacing is the temporary install for physical appearances.
Be creative.
Could you write something up on that? The issue isn't, items and stuff. The only issue we're talking about is, the use of paint essentially that needs to be cleaned up over time. And I'm sure, do we have other ordinances on that subject? Facing it?
I'm gonna look at the code though. Well, it does.
Could you come up with something with that, something caliber? And then if that's what that's the only thing we want to adjust, right? Don't we? And then, if it's something we're doing, and put it forward.
So really just cost incurred by the town, is kind of what our organized.
Anything else? Sure. All right. That means we have to have another meeting. Okay, Steve, the incident response cost recovery?
Yeah, so So, now that I have spare time and I retired back in April, I spent some time looking at opportunities for the town to either generate new revenue or, look at their cost structures and helping with the cost structures. And I ran into this opportunity here where when the fire department has to respond to a accident, and we have between 450 and 500 accidents that the fire department has to respond to on an annual basis, we can potentially recoup some of the costs by billing the at-fault driver's insurance company. And there's a third-party vendor, Fire Recovery USA. That's just one vendor that I ran into. And again, I haven't done a lot of research if there's other vendors and so forth. That they'll administer the entire program. And so the way it would work is if there's an accident on Queen Street, for example, the fire department has to go and they have to, put out a burning car or whatever they have to do. There's different levels of cost recoupment that depending on the type of, if they have to extract somebody, use the big jaws of life, obviously that would be a higher cost and so forth. And so the police report would be created. The fire department administrator would get a copy of the police report, enter into the portal. So it's like 2 to 3 minute data entry capability into the portal. And then the vendor would file that with the insurance company. They would get the claim coming back in, and then on a monthly basis, they would refund the town on that. The cost structure, again, this is not negotiated. This is just having an initial discussion with a representative from the vendor. 78% of that would go to the town, 22% would go to the vendor. So again, they provide a full, robust portal. So whoever's looking at it and administering it from the town, they can see every single transaction that's been submitted. They can see the status of it. They can see when the insurance company refunds the cost, and then they can see the payment coming back to the town, as well as their 22% fee. I have a couple of statistics here that I spoke to the sales rep there. So they feel that the collection percentage, and this is a very conservative number, 70% of the submissions would get paid by the insurance company. So obviously a lot of insurance companies would probably push back. I know my son works at the Hartford, he's in claims, so he didn't like this process, he didn't like this. He didn't, when I talked to him about it, but at the end of the day, they felt that 70% was a very conservative estimate of the percentage that would be successfully paid by the insurance company. We also would be able to bill directly any uninsured motorists. So if somebody got into an accident and they didn't have insurance, so obviously we couldn't bill the insurance company for the cost of that. We could potentially have the vendor bill the person directly. The challenge with that is if you're driving without insurance, you probably are in some financial difficulties to begin with. So I wouldn't count too much on being able to recoup uninsured motorists if they have an at-fault accident. So again, I just wanted to bring this to your attention. I had sent you a bunch of different documents. I looked at the way the Tulsa program implemented theirs. The company currently has 1,900 municipalities under contract across 43 different states. And to date, they've recovered about almost $250 million for the municipalities. So it's not a small number by any stretch. When I also was talking to the company, I found out that our previous 2 fire chiefs had actually been talking to the same company, but since they both terminated before they were able to implement this program, nothing ever happened to it. So it was interesting to hear that they've already been talking to fire chiefs within Southington. So that's why I just wanted to get everyone's thoughts around, is this something that makes sense for us? I know I talked to Ed Costello, the chairman of the fire commission, and the interim chief, and they're both interested in being able to potentially recoup some of their costs. As we know, it's a tough budget process, and they're asking for additional firefighters, and we're asking for additional police officers. So if there's anything we can do to help the town and bring in more revenue, I think it's, you know, would benefit us.
So the municipalities in benefit for using it?
Yeah, I didn't find out, but I'll definitely find out.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see
Okay.
what they codified for it. Is there like a Schedule A, you know, when tanker goes, it's $100?
Yeah, there's a, I'll send you the documentation, but you'll see the way Tulsa did it and the way the other municipalities are doing it is that there's 4 different levels of call types. So if they just go there and, you know, they don't have to do anything, it's, let's say $700. If they have to use the jaws of life and whatever, maybe it's like $1,200 for improvement. So it's different levels. So what we need to do is obviously we need to understand our cost structure of the fire department. We need to understand, you know, how many resources they send, you know, for these types of calls. What would be the average cost of those types of calls, and then we would have to come up with the appropriate cost structure to recruit and build the insurance companies for. So that'd be something that we would need to do if the committee was interested in pursuing this. I'd be happy to run point on that.
Just a quick question. Do we know, the fire department right now collects, this year was last year was 183,000 or something, in fire department fees, or some sort of, I'm not sure what it is though.
Yeah, I'm not aware of that.
Yeah, they actually mentioned it in our finance meetings, these,
Get reimbursed from the state for like cars and
Oh,
stuff on the highway.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
the
so-
added-
84 million.
would that be an overlay on, sorry, would this be an overlay on that, or would it,
I don't know how that would work. We would have to look into that, because, you know, if we could build on top of that and maybe double dip, that'd be really good, wouldn't it? No, but we would have to obviously work that out. If the state's reimbursing, well, remember, the state is just us. It's our money. So if the state's reimbursing us, it's really our tax money that's reimbursing ourselves, so why wouldn't we go after the insurance company?
what would the drivers in town think about this? Okay,
Are you talking about for everything in town or just the highway accidents?
No, this is just the town,
So,
across the town,
so if there's,
Including the highway?
including the highway.
so if there's an,
So Jeep flips over on Queen Street.
But the intention is for all at-fault drivers.
Any at-fault
Whether you
driver.
live in town or not.
Yep.
regardless if they're negligent or just.
Well, they have to be
At
determined
fault.
to be at fault, right, according to the police report. As the police report usually indicates,
We'll conclude that there may or there was a violation of traffic law, but really the insurance company doesn't.
and that's
You
what.
find someone 16.
Yeah.
So I have 2 questions. What happens if the insurance doesn't pay? Is it 7% on average pay?
The 30%, then you don't have, you lose that opportunity.
Okay. And then what if the person chooses not to go through insurance? What if they, you know, I don't know.
It doesn't matter for us, we would still bill the insurance company the cost of the fire. Now, that would trigger, obviously, if you're the at-fault driver and all of a sudden your insurance company's calling you saying, hey, the town of Southington is, looking to recoup $1,000 from your accident. We didn't even know you were in an accident. I mean, obviously.
So you said that. That's a question.
Yeah.
Steve, are there any fixed fees associated with this, like, maybe since there's like a very low number of accidents and whatnot? so
No,
whatever
it's just,
can-
22% they take in, and that, again, that's not negotiated, so potentially we could negotiate a better rate.
You said there's 400 accident or 400 calls in
450 to 500 at the fire department.
in 2025?
I sent you the data for 23, 24, and 25. I think 23 had 485, 25 had roughly about 430 or 430. So it's roughly between 430 to 500 on an annual basis.
all of those at-fault accidents, right?
Well, again, I don't know, I haven't looked at the details of each of those accidents and whether somebody was deemed to be at fault or not.
Steve, do we have any form of this type of process in place now, like handled by the town itself or no?
No, not that I'm
So
aware of.
basically, it's just, you would have that money coming in? Yeah, you get something no matter what, it's 7%.
That's what I'm
You're not
saying.
paying for anything other than just giving them something.
I mean, spitballing guesstimate numbers, say half are at fault, and then you said 70% are recovered. Times, so like using that, well, the lowest level here is like $710.
Yeah, use $750.
That's $105,000. It's a firefighter, something like that. Potentially.
So, yeah, the money goes to fund.
Yeah.
Services.
I think if we don't lose the other funding that the fire department gets, I think it's some great ideas.
How much is per call? I think it'll be, no.
All I know is the total amount. Oh, you watched it too?
The state gives them 500.
This third party entity doesn't use any town, personnel at all, they do everything on their end to.
Yeah, they administer a whole program. The only thing is somebody in the fire department would have to spend 2 minutes entering the police report information and the insurance of the at-fault driver.
Report to the fire department.
Potentially recoup $100,000, which is, you know, another firefighter, another job, I don't know what it is.
A little more than that.
They said it at the.
Half it probably makes a lot
They
of
said it
sense.
at the fire board meeting, I believe. I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, please, I'm not a firefighter.
Yeah, it was something around.
Like 130 to 140 with benefits and retirement.
I mean, it's almost another firefighter.
We'll see the downside, so.
Yeah, what's the downside?
So how do you want to proceed then? We want to proceed. First, do we want to proceed?
I guess you just have to vet the details, right?
Yeah,
I think it'd be interesting to find out how does it affect the person's insurance, right? So, like, does it negatively affect their insurance?
Well, I think
And that's like
when you get in an accident at your fault, your insurance company's either gonna drop you, or they're gonna, your next premium's gonna be, we've all been through that, I'm sure.
I would also be concerned if I were the town to pay taxes for those services. Yeah, I think people might ask that question.
I mean,
But
you could put something in there like non-Southington residents.
Well, that's why, I think it's, the question is, yeah, is this for at all, at fault drivers, it's not only the incident.
Limited to just the highway.
Why would you do that?
Spitballing, I guess.
I think we look into it more, give it a chance, and if we see it's problematic, then we back off. But if it brings in a revenue, I think it's a great idea.
Is there certain, you get like term time you have to, is it you up to
Comments?
Yep.
Hello, there's many of you. None of you have ever come. And I agree with you. Permanent graffiti has no place on town property, does not belong at all. And I have learned about the black chalk, okay? It was chalk, it lasted longer than I meant it to. I won't use it anymore. But what is also true, it was chalk, I made it, it was chalk. I showed the cop who was there. But what I want to say is also true is that the egos of some town officials should not be influencing townwide decisions. You said in one breath that there's no issue with chalk because the rain washes it away. But in the next one, admitted that you wasted the town money by sending paid employees to wash it off. So I think we gotta pick one there. And you mentioned reputational damage. If we are really worried about our reputation and bringing business to town, do we think we should be seen as the town that's punishing its citizens for exercising their First Amendment rights? Just curious. If we had town reps that answered emails or returned phone calls, maybe people wouldn't be getting so creative and trying to communicate with you. All right. But I also wanted to suggest something. If we are really worried about cost and reputation, there's a very cool, free and organic solution. It's called message. Doesn't mean we should be wasting town money to go take care of it when it is clearly not permanent. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gelfand. Anybody else?
My name is Al Oso. I live at 73 River Street. Just a warning, I'm a taxpayer. I pay taxes. Are we gonna start charging us if we have a fire in our house? We talked about this before. There was a group home that was calling 911. And the town decided we can't discourage people from calling 911, so there was nothing done about that. Your choice, I think it's interesting. $100,000, I'm not sure how much our budget is. I wouldn't want to open up that can of worms. I pay taxes, and to try to just do it for Southington residents, I think you would have a problem for that. But just a word of warning. I pay taxes already. I paid for 6 firemen over the last 4 years. My taxes are going up. I get in a little fender bender. I didn't call the fire department. The other party didn't call the fire department. Somebody called 911 and said there's a car accident, and now you have AMR, the police department, and the fire department. And neither one of the parties called me. I'd be very careful with that one. Just some advice.
Thank you very much, Mr. Anybody else?
This is the first time I'm doing this, I'm not a good public speaker, but I will.
Name address or someone?
My name is Mary Ann Slade. I live at 45 MacArthur Drive in Clansville.
And your name, I'm sorry?
Mary Ann Slade. I've lived in Southington pretty much all my life. I've been a preschool teacher, 38 years. Taught children that it's very important to use your words. And Caitlin worked with me, and I have been on a few of her chalk walks, not the one at the apple harvest, so don't. So I went to a couple of her chalk walks, and I find them to be very nice. Kids have come, they've made pictures, they've written words like love and peace. I crochet, so I've brought little stuffed animals, handed them out to people, talked to people. They don't always agree with us, but at the end of the time, they thanked us for doing it. I think it's a nice message to send, and like she said, when it rains, it all goes away. I brought people with me, and they've written messages. It's a nice time. We have a really nice time. Nobody goes there with an agenda. It's not a cabal. It's, it's just people getting together and having a good time and writing words of hope and peace. Our country is falling apart, and we just want to send messages of love and support to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Richard Cooper, 79 Barbara Lane. So I would just remind you all that if your specific issues with chalking at the apple harvest, you are actually able to impose reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions on free speech. So if it's specifically issues at the apple harvest, there's no need to create a whole new law, at least in my eyes. And also, there is a downside to charging insurance companies for apple drivers. I think we all, if that happens and insurance companies are aware, they will raise the premiums for all drivers in Southington. Thank you.
All in favour? Aye. Aye. Thanks, guys.